Hey everyone, and welcome to the BIZNIZ. I'm your host Nizar Ashraff, and today I would like to raise awareness on a topic that is usually silenced and not often spoken about. So today I really want to speak about sickle cell, and that's why I'm joined here today by a lovely lady who runs a page called Her Sickle Journey. Hey Tito, please introduce yourself.
Hey, I'm Tito. I'm 25. And like you said, I have a page called Her Sickle Journey, where I just talk about my life with sickle cell. And yeah, that's pretty much what I do at the moment.
Okay, sweet. So I only found you quite recently, like a few weeks ago, because it was on my heart to speak about this topic. I know how many people are suffering with the condition and there needs to be more awareness. And from what I've understood is that even within the NHS, there is such a misunderstanding with the condition and how to handle people with it. And so the first question I kind of wanted to ask you is, why do you think this is a hard conversation? Why do you think it's not being spoken about enough?
So I feel like it's only natural in areas where sickle cell isn't that common for people not to know as much about it. In the world, there are many different countries with more people with sickle cell, so it's only natural that doctors know more. But here, even though in London, again, that has the biggest population of people with sickle cell in the UK, you still find that there's still a lot of maybe skepticism when it comes to dealing with sickle cell patients, especially because it's an invisible condition. Like you don't see, like you can look at me and think that I'm perfectly fine and not know that I have sickle cell. So it's just kind of like, yeah, just because you don't really deal with it as much, you don't really understand it and you don't really see the pain that the people are going through. So then there's always that hesitation that's faced by people in the NHS.
Yeah, I feel like with just what I've come to know as well is that it's quite a lonely journey, and that might not even just be physically, but on a spiritual, mental level, because it's like maybe at home, for example, others don't really understand the pain because they are not going through the same pain. And so I feel like the difficulty is in actually speaking up and sharing that pain, because it's like, well, who's going to listen? Can you just speak to me about those internal processes that probably go through a lot of people's minds like you?
I think coming from my background, so I'm Nigerian, my parents are Nigerian, they're kind of, from young, it was a thing where you only knew about my health if you had to know. So if you were family or if you were like doctors, etc. It was very keep it to yourself. People don't have to know.
Like what stays in this house.
Exactly. And I feel like with them, they had the best intention in the sense where I don't think they wanted people to judge me. So I always kept it to myself. It wasn't maybe until I was in uni where I was more like vocal about my health. But yeah, it's not the best way to deal with it. And I know that there were so many times where, because I didn't really have anyone to relate to, and I'm the only one in my family with sickle cell, it's like, fair enough, like they can see me in pain and they can do what they can to help, but at the end of the day, it's just me going through it. And it was lonely because like, there wasn't really anyone to talk to who understood. And it wasn't even encouraged to speak about either. So it was like just a lose-lose kind of thing.
So how many siblings do you have?
I have two, so one younger brother, one younger sister.
And so you have sickle cell and they don't?
No.
Okay, so can you just explain how that can happen, that you can have sickle cell and your other siblings don't?
So my parents are both carriers of the sickle cell trait, so their genotype is AS. And then you have to inherit both sickle cell genes from each parent to get the full-blown condition, which I did. So I'm SS, that's my genotype. Okay. My brother is AA, so he didn't even inherit the trait, which is great. And my sister's AS, so she inherited the trait from one of my parents. Right. So yeah, we're literally a bit of everything. Yeah.
So what's the difference between SS, AA, and AS?
So AA, you don't have sickle cell. That's just the normal genotype. AS, you have the trait, so that means that you can also pass on the trait to your children. And SS is the full-blown condition, which
and you have SS?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Okay. So I think what we've kind of got into already is just breaking down those things, because I didn't really know what the differences were. And just on, in terms of speaking up about sickle cell, I personally feel like there's this deafening silence. And, you know, as we do know, it affects predominantly Black people, African and Caribbean people. And I was kind of intrigued because I know that on the front line, there's so many charities for cancer, for, you know, different kind of diseases, but this one is almost like there's a deafening silence. And I did want to ask this question, so I'm going to ask it. But do you think that with the country we're in, that we're not favoured?
Definitely.
Especially on the medical field.
Yeah, definitely. It's undeniable almost. There are so many things where, like, if sickle cell was a condition that affected white people, like the majority of white people, like there'd be a lot more attention into it, a lot more provisions. So, for example, with sickle cell, it's a condition where, like, there are benefits that that we have access to in the UK, but they're not advertised. So things like a freedom pass, that's something that we can apply for, but they don't make it easy for us. Things like personal independent payments, like another benefit that, again, we have to like jump through hoops and prove so much, but it shouldn't be that difficult. And there are a lot of other conditions which they don't affect people as much as sickle cell can affect somebody, and they're entitled to everything. Even with cancer patients, like there's a certain medicine which I used to use, which cancer patients would use the same thing. So it's like, if we have the same treatment, why don't we also like have access to the same benefits and things like that? So it's like there's a huge difference in terms of like how we're cared for, the things that we're allowed access to. So it's just like, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, no, it's mad. What are the benefits of the Freedom Pass? Does that allow you to just travel for free?
Yeah, so in London, I can travel on pretty much any mode of transport for free. So bus, train,
Not
tube.
Uber?
No. I wish.
That would have been a blessing.
Yeah, that would be great.
Oh.
But yeah, like there are time restrictions and things like that. But I mean, traveling in London isn't cheap anyway. So.
Yeah, it's not.
And I forgot it yesterday, and I went out, and just the way back home, I was like, I can't tell you how much it is to travel in London because I have this pass, but I spent so much yesterday because I forgot it. And I was like, I just couldn't believe it.
This London, it's not easy to travel.
Too expensive.
It's not. Okay, so, right. So for me personally, I've never donated blood. And I know that that is the cry for help, for more Black people to be blood donors. And I want to ask this question about, why do you think people are on the fence of donating blood, especially within the Black community? Me personally, I think my kind of reservation with donating blood is that sometimes my body's in a lot of physical pain. And so I don't think it's an excuse, but I want you to educate me on this kind of thing, because for me personally, I felt like, well, what if my blood isn't good? But perhaps I actually need to go out of my way to test that and see. So yeah, what would you say to people that are concerned with doing it, and how can they help by doing it?
So giving blood is something that is essential for a lot of people with sickle cell. So I have something called a red cell exchange transfusion every 6 weeks, where they give me like 9 units of blood at the same time they're taking away my blood. So it's something that really helps reduce the risk of like all the serious complications that can come as a result from sickle cell, because basically it's a condition of the blood. So anywhere the blood can go, your body can be affected. So getting new blood is kind of like just kind of replacing the issue altogether. So yeah, a lot of people are like you, on the fence about giving blood. I find that for a lot of people, it's just more of like the initial fear. I think when someone goes the first time, then they understand like it's actually an okay process and they're more willing to go again. I think the staff that I've always encountered like at these blood donation centres, they're always so friendly, because they understand that giving blood isn't really something that people do. Like it's not a usual thing, so they make you as comfortable as possible. If you want, like if you have any questions, then they're more than happy to answer. Sorry. I think, and like in terms of like the experience, a lot of people in their mind, they have like maybe like a fear of needles or something like that. But it's honestly like it's just so, I don't think people make it seem, or they think it's as bad as it actually is. Like when you actually go, you realize, okay, it's a really relaxed, like kind of experience, and you're there just trying to like do good, and then you kind of feel like you see people around, you're like, okay, yeah, we're all here with like someone else in mind, and it's like a stranger, and it's just kind of like a feel good kind of thing. I find that also like when I started arranging like group blood donations, a lot of people in the Black community, it's not that they didn't want to give, it was more of a thing where they just weren't aware that they could help in that way. Like no one's really come to them before and said, oh, do you want to give blood? And when I asked the majority of people, they were like, okay, yeah, like why not kind of thing. Like they didn't have a reason not to. And then I find that when you go with your friends or people you're more familiar with, you're more comfortable. And it's a better experience in general. So yeah.
So just in response to what you were saying, for me personally, it's never been a thing where anyone's come up to me and, you know, spoken about donating blood. And I've only really gotten to know people with sickle cell quite recently. So I've never really known anyone with the condition. And that's why I'm really happy that you're here today, because I think this is really going to move many people to be like, okay, I know more about it now. I've seen a conversation, and this is what the girl with the condition has informed us. So for me, I'm definitely now more willing to go and test my blood and see if it's okay to donate, because there's no harm in that. So yeah, aside from this, you did mention the kind of conditions, the kind of complications, health complications that come with having sickle cell. Can you just list some of those out for us, please?
Yeah, so one thing that people with sickle cell experience a lot, which we kind of refer to a lot, is the sickle cell crisis. So basically with sickle cell, the way I was explained what sickle cell is when I was younger is that, sorry. So normally when there's certain things that trigger a sickle cell crisis. So things like when you're too cold, or when you're dehydrated, or when you're stressed. So when I was younger in like year 5, I just knew that when it was cold or raining outside, I couldn't go outside to play. So I would normally
couldn't go outside to play?
Yeah, yeah. Like I just have to stay inside in the warmth. So I would ask a friend to stay in with me. So I was asking one girl, I was like, oh, can you stay inside with me? And she was like, why? And I was like, because I have sickle cell. She was like, what's that? And then I was like, I don't know. I just knew what I had to do. So my year 5 teacher overheard me, and she was like, oh, it's basically a condition where your blood cells, like normal healthy blood cells, are like a circle shape. But with me, mine are like a crescent shape. And I need to do certain things to stop them from sticking together. Because if they stick together in a certain area, then it'll cause a lot of pain, which is a sickle cell crisis, because there's lack of blood flow, lack of oxygen in that area where it's stuck together. That was my first real understanding of it. So that's one of the main symptoms, the sickle cell crisis. There's also signs such as like jaundice, so like the yellowing of the eyes, the whites of the eyes and the skin. That's just to do with like how the body breaks down the blood, because the blood cells don't last as long. So these sickle cells, they last maybe 10 to 20 days, whereas normal red blood cells will last like 100 to 120 days. There's that. There is delayed growth, again to do with the size of the cells. There are things like, so let's say people with sickle cell have a higher risk of stroke. Again, if blood gets stuck in your brain, that could cause lack of oxygen and cause a stroke. So that's something which is monitored from very young. Yeah, just different things. Again, like literally wherever your blood can go, there could be a potential issue. It can cause issues of like vision, like if it blocks. It's just.
So with sickle cell, I understand that it varies from person to person.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
for one person, there can be different things that they're dealing with, and different for you. And how do you guys, like, how do you personally manage your health, I guess, because to some extent you have to become your own health advocate.
Yeah, definitely.
And knowing what's right for you when the nurses don't.
Yeah, I think a lot of it is trial and error. There's certain things which I can do, which another person with sickle cell can't do. Like, we all vary quite a bit. I just need to know my body. I need to know my limits as well. I can do like a certain amount of exercise, but if it gets to a point where like I start to feel like I'm overdoing it, I need to take a step back and be like, okay, it's not worth me continuing all in the name of getting a workout in, like, because I know the potential damage it can cause to me. I need to stay hydrated. I just need to kind of like stay on top of these triggers. So for me, like one of my biggest triggers is stress. So it was like when I was at uni, I didn't know stress was a trigger. It was when I had like a dissertation due. I had like 7 exams to revise for, coursework, and I was in and out of hospital, and I was just thinking, what's going on? Like, this is the worst time. But then like one of the nurses was like, stress can also trigger a crisis. So I was like, okay, that makes sense now. So now it's like, if a situation is getting too stressful for me, I need to like work to reduce that stress and just reassess everything that I'm doing and just come back to it later when I'm feeling more level-headed or whatever. But yeah, there's just so many things which I have to stay on top of just to make sure that I'm as healthy as I can be. And the same with other people. They have different levels, I guess, like different things that their body would react to that they just also have to be aware of. And then like wherever I'm going, I have to carry a jacket just to be warm, stuff like that. So yeah.
And what does with managing, you know, stress and all these different health complications, when you are fine and nothing is going on, how do you feel and how do you manage to even incorporate rest?
When I'm fine, I guess it's kind of funny in the sense where like me being fine, it's like you never really know how long it's gonna last, and there's so many things which can trigger a crisis, some which I can control, which I've explained, like weather, hydration, stress, etc. Some which I can't control. Like sometimes it can just happen randomly and you just don't really know what caused it. So it's just more of like just doing everything in your power to just to make sure that you're doing what you can, and then just hoping that you just stay fine throughout, and then yeah.
Okay. And due to, you know, the change of weather conditions that we have constantly in the UK, have you ever felt like you would be better off elsewhere?
Yeah. That's what, like my parents, they live in Nigeria. So every Christmas they're like, oh, come to Nigeria, it's warmer. And I'm getting a bit tired of going to the same country, but I get what they're saying because there's some times where I choose to stay and then I just find myself, I'm just so ill constantly, and then they'll be like, okay, you have to come now. And then when I go, suddenly like the weather, everything has just made me feel a lot more better.
Really?
Yeah, so
crazy, man.
The difference is wild. But I guess, I don't know, I play with the idea of potentially moving to another country, but I'm
You're
born and bred
comfortable.
here. Yeah,
You're
I'm
comfortable.
comfortable.
Okay. One of the things that I kind of gathered through my research and even just speaking, how you said there's a higher risk of getting a stroke. Sickle cell, unfortunately, does shorten person's lifespan. Can you just kind of talk to us about that as well?
Yeah, so I think that's one of the first things which I found out about my health, because again, like when I was younger, there weren't many people to speak to. So I had to go to the internet, and then I just find like the harshest facts ever, and I'm like, oof, I wasn't ready to hear that.
Yeah.
And then also I did A-level biology. This is again at a time where like no one knew about my health, and I was the only black girl in the school. Like, what are the chances that the only black girl has sickle cell? And then in a way to like get the class excited for the next lesson, he put on like a slide which was like why people with sickle cell die young. And I was like, whoa, like it's like them things that you hear but you never really deep it.
Yeah.
So it's just like, it took me back, and you could see like the color drain from my face. He had to pull me aside and be like, wait, do you have sickle cell? And I was like, yeah. And then like the approach he took for the next class was like, okay, yeah, this is the symptoms that they face, but with modern science, X, Y, and Z, like he was just kind of like watering down the facts just to make me feel better. But it's one of those things where it's like, I know I've read all the information out there, And I've seen like so many people, well not so many, but some people who have like significantly beat the odds. So I'm hopeful.
That's good.
I'm doing literally what I can just to ensure that I'm as healthy as I can be. And yeah, I think that's me, to be honest. Yeah.
One thing I do want to ask as well is, how has it been managing friendships and different people in your life? And what I have understood as well is a lot of people have kind of felt a kind of rejection when someone thinks your condition is too much to handle.
Definitely.
How has that been growing up? Have you been affected by that?
Yeah, definitely. I think around the time where I didn't share about my health, no one knew, so they didn't know that they had to be there for me like that in terms of my health. It was just family, and I was fine with that. But when I went to uni and I'm away from my family, I can't suddenly like go to the hospital for a week and my friends just not say anything. Like they will notice, they'll be like, "Oh, where's Tito?" So I remember once, like I just told them, like I think maybe I had like a hospital like appointment letter on my like notice board or something, and they were like, "Oh, what's this for?" And then I was like starting to like speak about it a lot more. It wasn't until like my third year where I like met my closest group of friends, where they just showed me that like sickle cell, at least to them, it was not a big deal at all. So I remember I just dropped it to them so like randomly, like it was nothing. And then like maybe the next week I get a call from two of them and they're like, "Oh, let's take you to dinner." I'm like, "Okay, let's," because I was relatively new. And they're like, "Oh yeah, we just wanted to find out more about your health, etc." And I was like, "Okay, like this is new," and I was happy about it because they actually took an interest in it, and they didn't just let it go. And then from there, I remember there was one time like when I was in and out of hospital because of exams, there was a time where my friends called me and I was like, or they were like, "Oh, what can we do to help? Like, what do you need?" And I was just like, "I'm thirsty." And that's something which I can just ask a nurse, like, "Can you get me a glass of water?" But they decided to like go to like Iceland with like a suitcase and they bought me like 20 2-liter bottles of water. And I was like, "Guys, what am I going to do with this?" They brought it to the hospital, like I could carry it back. I'm like, "Guys, please." But even stuff like that, they were like, "Oh, we want to do more." And then it was from there where one of my friends was like, he's going to start giving blood. And I was like, wow. He was like, "Yeah, because one day maybe if you need blood in an emergency, I'll just be like, take my arm." And I'm like, it's not going to get like that. But I was really touched by that. And before then, like I never really considered like giving blood like at all in terms of like I should start encouraging people to do that. But when I saw my friends do it, because of like I didn't even ask them, and I was like, "Okay, yeah, definitely I can get more people on board because the benefits are crazy. Like they can help so many people." So yeah, my friends have been amazing. They're literally a godsend.
No, it's really nice to hear that your friends were very intentional with helping you and wanting to be educated. And I think within the UK, there's so many people that have friendship groups, and their friends are so relaxed about serious things like this and will disregard it because it's an uncomfortable conversation. But we need to get comfortable with things that are uncomfortable. So that is definitely a blessing. Let's move on now and speak about your page that you run, Her Sickled Journey. What is the purpose of it?
So the first time like I started sharing, it was actually a blog, and it was anonymous because again I didn't want people to know. I think it got like maybe 27 reads in like the space of like 3 years or something. But I started sharing on there, then I left it for a bit, and then again when I went to uni, my friends, when they found out my health and they found out that I had a blog, they were like, "Okay, you're starting this again." So I started writing again, and then it was only kind of natural that I started sharing on like Instagram, and then that kind of like took over in the sense where because I was able to share them more frequently and stuff like that. So it just kind of it grew from there. I guess the aim was just to ensure that people with sickle cell had someone to look to be like, "Okay, this is her life with sickle cell. Like she's okay, she's doing well. This is what she's doing," kind of thing. Just so that they can have like an example, because I never really had that example. And then also in terms of raising awareness, people who don't know what sickle cell is. And just kind of making it easier for the next person that they meet with sickle cell as well. So that's why I have my page, just to raise awareness and make people with it feel more comfortable in a sense.
No, that's really good. And I see that you do post quite regularly, so it's not really a page that you just leave to the side. It's something that you're constantly pioneering. So what can we do to continue to help to change the narrative and implement change in this area?
Honestly, I think everything just stems from raising awareness, from having conversations like this. Like, the more we speak about it, the more normal it becomes, the more people know about it, and it just naturally follows from there. I think sickle cell is something that affects a lot of people. Like, a lot of people who I've spoken with, they're like, oh yeah, I have like a cousin who has sickle cell or something like that, but they don't actually know what it entails, or what their relative goes through. So it's just literally more of just making ourselves more aware of what it is, and how we can help, even if it's not giving blood, just raising awareness. I think that's just where we start, to be honest.
Yeah, definitely. I really just want to applaud you for everything you're doing, because, you know, you could literally just be in a rut about your condition, but you've got such a hopeful mindset in relation to it, and you're even basically pouring into people as you are dealing with it. And so running your page is honestly a godsend. And yeah, thank you so much for just joining me on here today.
Thank you for having me.
No, it's all good. And yeah, for everyone watching, this has been The BIZNIZ with Nizar Ashraff. Please check the description box below, because there's going to be some details about how you can help to raise awareness and donate blood for people like Tito. Thank you so much.
Thank you.